Tournament Center here at Pro Tour Magic 2015 in Portland, Oregon. I'm Brian David Marshall, and I'm joined by a regular guest here in the Tournament Center at this point, Craig Wescoe. Craig, I gotta admit, there are a couple cards when a new set comes out, they really become almost identified as Wescoe cards. I think anytime a new Johnny comes out, people want to know what you think about it.
Fair.
And there's a particular card, and I think maybe surprisingly not a white card in this case, that I really wanted to know about. And you're playing both of these cards in your deck today. So let's start taking a look at this deck, and we'll talk a little bit about it. You're playing a green-white mid-range deck. But, I mean, this is pretty beatdown for a mid-range deck here. Tell us about these cards. You have a long history with Experiment 1 and Soldier of the Pantheon.
Yeah, it's kind of a little experiment I'm running. It's you play the 1-drop. He's the best one to cast on turn 1. And then you can play either of the other 2 1-drops on the next turn to pump him, or what happens more likely is Voice or Fleecemane Lion.
Okay. So you're growing him, Soldier of the Pantheon, and Sunblade Elf, 2 and 2.
Yeah.
Why are you splitting them up?
Well, sometimes with the Sunblade Elf, if you draw multiples, the activation is the same as if you just had one. So drawing too many of them isn't really essential. And sometimes with Soldier of the Pantheon, you want a Selesnya charm, but you can't target him with +2/+2, so they'll just block that one with the Caryatid, whereas I can't do that with the Sunblade Elf.
Okay, let's take a little bit more of a look at the Sunblade Elf. Let's give a spotlight on this guy. Talk to me about this card. Tell me what he does. He's kind of like, almost like a little bit of a Gavoni Township light.
Yeah, once you get to 5 mana, you can just start pumping your team and making combat really difficult, because our creatures are already usually bigger than whatever the opponent's doing, because we're playing like smiters, so 4/4s for 3, 3/3s for 2, things like that. And the Experiment one keeps getting bigger too, so that outclasses their guys. So once you get to 5 mana and you have this guy on the board, then suddenly like, oh God, you know, like, what do I do about these like potentially 5/5s and 4/4s, 6/6 Advent of the Worm tokens?
So, and how difficult is it to, be able to drop this guy on turn 1 and reliably also have a plane so that he's a 2/2? Sort of like very Wild Nicodily in that regard.
Yeah, there's Temple Garden, which allows you to do that on turn 1. So there's 4 of those. And then also, if you just lead with Forest or Mana Confluence on this guy, the next turn you play a Plains, and then whatever you're doing on the next turn, he's attacking for 2 right away.
Okay. All right, well, let's get back into the deck itself. And here are some of the cards you've already mentioned. A gold mine of cards. Yep. Voice of Resurgence, Fleecemane Lion, Loxodon the Spider, Advent of the Worm.
These are all white cards.
They are all white cards. Walk us through this selection. And some of these you've played to great success already.
Yeah. This is very similar to my Dragon's Maze deck. Instead of running with the Rootborn defenses and the Call of the Conclaves, now I have Fleecemane Lion. So Fleecemane Lion I can make indestructible, so I don't even need the Rootborn defenses to protect him from things like Supreme Verdict. He just has it built in.
Saves you a card?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Voice of Resurgence, still good. I mean, he seems to have like quieted down a little bit. He had a big heyday when it came out, and you're bringing it back.
Yeah, like he's not super good against mono blue because you can't really make a lot of good use of the 2/2 body compared to the sort of creatures they run. But it's super good against things like Devour Flesh, Desecration Demon, and then also anytime the opponent's trying to do something on your turn, like Azorius Charm, forces them to just do everything on their turn, which gives you opportunity to do things like a Johnny Caller of the Pride, just start like, hit him. I attacked Bob Maher for 14 in 1 turn when I didn't attack him basically before that point.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Magic players get used to playing on script with their decks. This is when I do this, this is when I do this. And you force them to ad-lib with Voice of Resurgence because they can't do stuff at the end of your turn.
Yeah, it's just a really good card.
Okay, Advent of the Worm. Again, another card. Dragon's Maze card wins a Pro Tour.
Yeah.
It wins a Pro Tour and then nothing. No return phone calls, nothing, not even a text. What happened to it? Where'd it go?
Well, a lot of people aren't playing Sphinx's Revelation decks. At that Pro Tour, the big deck was Esper Control with Sphinx's Revelation. So this was great. They'd have to tap out to cast Supreme Verdict. Then end step, you'd cast this guy after regenerating your Experiment 1 and getting your Voice of Resurgence token. And then suddenly, like, what do? I just wrathed you, and now you have a whole board again.
Right,
and like, I haven't even passed the turn, So like, yeah, so he does a lot of work in that regard. And blocking things like Blood Baron of Viscopa, that's a problematic card if I don't have the Worm. So he just does a lot of work.
And so, like, you think like the rise of like the mono blue and mono black decks have been worse for a card like this?
He's not very good against Judge's Familiar, and the blue decks run Judge's Familiar. So that was probably the biggest reason that he didn't see a lot of play. But he works so good with the Johnny Collar of the Pride, just like 10, can't block it.
All right, let's go on and take a look. Here we see a couple of your tricks. Banishing Light, not much of a trick, really. It's just like get that out of the way.
Yeah.
But Selesnya Charm has remained a good card during its tenure in Standard.
Yeah, it's really good at just forcing the opponent to make blocks that are not advantageous for them. So they block your 3/3 with a 4/4, then you make your guy a 5/5 Trampler, or dealing with things like Thassa or Desecration Demon. It's sort of another removal spell that can also be a creature or a combat trick.
Right.
So it's just very versatile.
And we've learned anything that says exile is very powerful with indestructible gods running around.
This is true, yep.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look. Some of the other cards. So Johnny Collar of the Pride, you've mentioned this card a couple times. Talk to me about, jumping Loxodon Smiters.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do is to just get a guy through. So there's a lot of decks like Mono Green Devotion where their whole plan is to just block things on the ground, like put my Caryatid, my Courser, my Pelucranos in front of your guy. You're just like, oh, well, I'll just play a Johnny and make my guy jump up in the air and kill you.
Right. And so when you're doing that to a Loxodon Smiter or some card you've played pretty early, you can play that card on turn 3, on turn 4, drop this, you're getting in for 10.
Well, unless the Johnny's already on the board, then I cast this card, bestowing it on the creature, and then that thing jumps up in the air and hits you for like, you're not surviving.
Yeah, no, that's
it game over.
I can't do that math.
It's just pick up your cards.
Cthulian math. Your brain goes crazy. All right, let's keep moving on. Mana Confluence, Temple Garden, 8 plains, 8 forests. This seems like a shocking mana base in Standard right now.
Very shocking, yeah.
Or very minimally shocking.
So I don't have any Mutavaults. I don't have any Temples of Plenty. I want all my lands to come into play untapped, and I want them to help me cast my spells. So I have a Johnny, which is double white. I have Boonsatyr and Advent, double green. And this is a tempo deck, so you need to cast your spells in order on time. So I went away from the Temple of Plenties and the Mutavaults for that reason.
Excellent. I think people at home are going to be excited to see a deck with a more accessible mana base that they might want to emulate. This is a deck that's been successful. We've seen it at the Star City Opens the last couple of weeks. You're pretty much playing a similar list.
It's basically the same deck. It's a few cards, modified, but that's pretty much the same deck that's been doing well the past few weeks.
And so when you're coming into a tournament, you look at a deck like that and you go, "That's what I want to be doing."
That's the short answer. Yeah,
we don't have time for the long answer. You gotta play some Magic.
I took the long way around, but yeah, it doesn't take much to convince me to play this type of deck.
Okay, all right. So there you have it. For Craig Wescoe, this is Brian David Marshall, sending it back to Rich Hagon.